She was dying. His hand wrapped around her throat, squeezing, the car swerving wildly. She was trapped in a moving vehicle on a dark Detroit street with a man trying to kill her. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his other hand crushing her windpipe. She clawed at his face, drew blood, kicked the dashboard. Then she did the only thing she could think of. She grabbed the door handle and jumped. Hit the pavement at 30 miles per hour. Skin tearing, bones bruising, rolled across the asphalt, scrambled to her feet, ran without looking back. She survived, but 5 other women didn't, because the man in the burgundy Grand Prix had been hunting for years, across 5 countries, on 3 continents. The US Navy had unknowingly given him the perfect hunting ground, and he'd used it to kill between 16 and 33 women, maybe more. The bodies were scattered across the world, and no one connected the dots, until the spring of 2000, when he made a mistake.
April 10th, 2000, Detroit, Michigan. A woman's body was pulled from the Rouge River, partially decomposed, floating face down. Wendy Jordan, 23 years old, local sex worker. She'd been strangled, ligature marks around her neck, signs of a violent struggle. Detroit police began their investigation. 3 days later, April 13th, another body. Robin Brown, also strangled, also a sex worker. April 16th, Catherine Woods, same method, same victim profile. Then Laura Lannon, then Nakia Jackson. 5 women, 3 weeks, all strangled, all sex workers, all disposed of like garbage. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Detroit had a serial killer, active, escalating, and he was hunting right now. Detectives started interviewing sex workers in the areas where the bodies had been found. What they heard terrified them. Multiple women reported the same thing. "There's a car, burgundy Grand Prix. If you see it, run." A man had been picking up women, seemed normal at first. Then something would change. His eyes would go cold, his grip would tighten. Some women escaped, barely. Others didn't. Police began searching for the burgundy Grand Prix, canvassing neighborhoods, reviewing surveillance footage, following leads. The car became the focus of the entire investigation, because somewhere in Detroit, that car was still prowling, still hunting, and the man behind the wheel wasn't stopping. Not every woman who got into the burgundy Grand Prix died. Some survived, barely. Their stories paint a terrifying picture of what happened inside that car. One woman, her name kept confidential for her safety, agreed to speak with police. She described the night she almost became another body in the Rouge River. It was around midnight. She was working a corner on Michigan Avenue. A burgundy Grand Prix pulled up. The driver rolled down his window. "Looking for a date?" he asked. He seemed normal, quiet, polite even. She got in the car. At first, everything seemed fine. They drove toward an agreed location. But then she noticed something. His hands were tightening on the steering wheel, knuckles going white. The atmosphere in the car changed. The air felt heavy. She looked at his face. His eyes had gone completely cold, empty, like looking into the eyes of a shark. Without warning, he reached over and grabbed her by the throat with one hand, still driving with the other. She could feel his fingers digging into her windpipe, cutting off her air. Panic flooded her system. She realized she was trapped in a moving vehicle with a man trying to kill her. She clawed at his face, her fingernails raking across his cheek, drawing blood. She kicked at the dashboard, at the door, anything she could reach. The car swerved violently as he tried to maintain control while choking her. In that moment of distraction, she grabbed the door handle and threw herself out. Hit the pavement hard, skin tearing, rolling across the street. She scrambled to her feet, bruised, bleeding, and ran without looking back. She was certain, absolutely certain, that if she'd stayed in that car even 30 seconds longer, she would be dead. Another survivor had an even closer call. He'd driven her to an abandoned industrial area, far from any witnesses, any help. Rusted warehouses, broken windows, no lights for blocks. The moment he put the car in park, he lunged. A cord stretched between his hands, already prepared. He'd brought it with him, planned this. She fought back with everything she had, screaming even though she knew no one could hear, biting down hard on his hand until she tasted blood, kicking at his groin, scratching at his eyes. Her fierce, almost animalistic resistance caught him off guard. In a moment of chaos, she got the door open, escaped into the darkness between the abandoned buildings. She ran, hid behind dumpsters, under loading docks, waiting, listening for his footsteps. Finally, she heard his car start, drive away. She stayed hidden until dawn, too terrified to move. These women were the lucky ones, the ones who fought, who jumped, who ran. But their stories revealed something crucial to investigators. The man had a pattern, a methodology. Pick up sex workers, drive to secluded areas, sudden attack, strangulation. And when that pattern was disrupted by unexpected resistance, he would sometimes retreat, rather than risk being caught. But not always, because 5 women were already dead, and the man in the burgundy Grand Prix was still out there.
The burgundy Grand Prix became legendary on Detroit streets. Sex workers warned each other about it. If you see that car, run. Don't get in. Don't even talk to him. But desperation makes people take risks, and some women needed the money badly enough that they'd get in anyway, hoping they'd be the exception, that it wouldn't happen to them. It did. Police pulled surveillance footage from gas stations, convenience stores, traffic cameras, looking for that burgundy Grand Prix. They found it, multiple times, cruising the same areas, night after night, prowling, license plate visible in several frames. They ran it, registered to John Eric Armstrong, 26 years old. Address, Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Occupation, former U.S. Navy sailor, recently discharged after 7 years of service. Detectives started digging into Armstrong's background. On the surface, he looked normal. Navy veteran, married, no criminal record, quiet neighbor. But when they looked closer, red flags appeared. His Navy service had taken him all over the world. Assigned to the USS Nimitz, one of the largest aircraft carriers in the world. Between 1992 and 1999, the USS Nimitz had visited ports in over a dozen countries: Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, Israel, Philippines, South Korea, Australia. Detectives started making calls to international law enforcement agencies, asking about unsolved murders of sex workers in those port cities. What they discovered was horrifying. Every port the USS Nimitz visited had unsolved murders. Sex workers, strangled, bodies found after the ship departed. The pattern was unmistakable. John Eric Armstrong hadn't just been killing in Detroit. He'd been killing for 7 years, across 3 continents, using the United States Navy as his personal hunting ground. Meanwhile, in Detroit, the burgundy Grand Prix was still on the streets. Armstrong didn't know police had identified him yet. He was still hunting. Detectives knew they had to move fast before he killed again. On April 12, 2000, they brought him in for questioning. The USS Nimitz is one of the most powerful warships ever built. A nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 1,092 feet long, 97,000 tons. Home to over 5,000 sailors and Marines when fully staffed. A floating city, a symbol of American military might. And for 7 years, it unknowingly carried a serial killer. John Eric Armstrong enlisted in the Navy in 1992, just 19 years old. Following in his father's footsteps, his father was a Navy veteran. Armstrong was assigned to the USS Nimitz as an aviation support equipment technician. By all accounts, he was a good sailor, performed his duties adequately, stayed out of trouble. But during shore leave, he became something else entirely. When detectives started coordinating with international agencies, the pattern became clear. The USS Nimitz would dock in a port city for 3 to 5 days. Sailors would go on shore leave, explore the city, unwind. While his shipmates visited tourist sites and local bars, Armstrong was hunting. He had a specific victim profile: sex workers, women operating in red light districts, vulnerable, marginalized, women whose disappearances might not trigger intensive investigations, especially in countries where sex work was criminalized or stigmatized. Armstrong knew exactly what he was doing. The transient nature of Navy port visits created perfect cover. By the time a body was discovered, the USS Nimitz would be thousands of miles away, making any connection to an American sailor virtually impossible. Between 1992 and 1999, Armstrong committed what he later claimed were numerous murders. The exact number remains uncertain. He claimed 16 to 33 victims total. Some investigators believe the number could be higher. Bodies were found in multiple countries, but without DNA evidence, without witnesses, without any connection to the American military, most cases went unsolved, filed away as local crimes, while Armstrong sailed away, returning to his duties, sleeping in his bunk alongside other sailors.
None of them knowing what he'd done just hours before. What's particularly disturbing from a psychological perspective is how Armstrong compartmentalized his life. During the day, Petty Officer Armstrong, functioning member of a military unit. During shore leave, a predator, stalking, murdering. Then returning to the ship as if nothing had happened. This ability to switch between identities, to live a double life without arousing suspicion, speaks to a profound disconnect. A person who had learned to separate his actions from any sense of moral consequence. In 1999, Armstrong left active duty, received an honorable discharge after 7 years of service. He returned to civilian life in the United States, settled in Dearborn Heights, Michigan, with his wife. Yes, Armstrong was married. He'd managed to maintain a relationship, present himself as a normal husband, all while carrying the weight of multiple murders. His wife had no idea. To her, to their neighbors, John Eric Armstrong was just another veteran adjusting to civilian life. Quiet, polite, unremarkable. But leaving the Navy didn't stop his compulsion. It simply changed his hunting ground. From international ports to the streets of Detroit. After Armstrong's arrest, international police began reviewing unsolved cases. Looking for murders during USS Nimitz port visits, what they found was staggering. Dozens of unsolved murders, spanning 7 years, 5 countries. These are 3 of the cases they were able to confirm. Hong Kong, 1994. The Wan Chai district, known for its nightlife, its bars, its sex workers. The USS Nimitz docked at Victoria Harbor for 4 days in May. On the second night of shore leave, Armstrong left the ship around 10 p.m. Surveillance footage later showed him walking through Wan Chai. He picked up a woman in her early 20s, Chinese, local sex worker. They were seen entering a cheap hotel together. She was found dead the next morning, strangled in the hotel room. By the time Hong Kong police began their investigation, the USS Nimitz had already departed. The case was filed as an isolated murder, probably committed by a local client. Her name was never released to Western media. She remains one of Armstrong's many unnamed victims. Thailand, 1996. Bangkok, the Patpong district, one of the most notorious red light areas in Southeast Asia. The USS Nimitz was in port for 5 days in August. Armstrong spent his shore leave prowling Patpong's narrow streets. He picked up a Thai woman, mid-20s, working to send money back to her family in rural Thailand. They went to a hotel room. She was strangled. Armstrong left her body on the bed, walked out calmly, returned to his ship. The body was discovered the next day by hotel staff. Bangkok police investigated, but without any leads, the case went cold. Language barriers, jurisdictional issues, a murder of a sex worker in a city where such violence wasn't uncommon. The case was filed away. The woman's name was Siriporn. She was 24 years old. Israel, 1998. Haifa, a port city on the Mediterranean coast. The USS Nimitz docked for a routine port visit in November. Armstrong went into the city, found the areas where sex workers operated. He picked up a woman, Israeli, in her 30s. She was strangled. Her body disposed of in a way that made investigators initially believe it was a local crime. Israeli police investigated thoroughly, but they had no reason to connect the murder to an American sailor. The USS Nimitz had already left port by the time her body was found. Years later, after Armstrong's confession, Israeli authorities were able to confirm the connection. He was tried and convicted in absentia for her murder, received an additional life sentence. Though he would serve his time in the United States, these 3 cases represent just a fraction of Armstrong's international murders. Investigators believe he killed in multiple other countries: Singapore, Philippines, South Korea, possibly Australia. But without confessions, without DNA evidence, without concrete proof, many cases remain officially unsolved. The bodies are there, the murders happened, but connecting them definitively to Armstrong is impossible, which means the true number of his victims may never be known. What investigators did determine was why he got away with it for so long. The transient nature of Navy port visits, 3 to 5 days per city. By the time bodies were discovered, the ship was gone. Jurisdictional complications, each murder in a different country, different police force. Language barriers, cultural differences in how crimes were investigated. And the sad reality, murders of sex workers were often deprioritized, seen as less important than other homicides. All of these factors combined to create the perfect environment for a serial killer.
Armstrong wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was just methodical. He targeted vulnerable victims in foreign countries where he knew he'd never be caught. And for 7 years, he was right. He killed with impunity until he came home to Detroit.
April 12th, 2000, Detroit Police Department. John Eric Armstrong sat across from two detectives. Initially, he denied everything. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never hurt anyone." But detectives had evidence: the Burgundy Grand Prix, multiple witnesses, survivor testimonies, and now international connections. Unsolved murders in every port the USS Nimitz had visited. They laid it out for him, piece by piece. Armstrong's composure started to crack. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. He asked for a lawyer. Interrogation paused. But the next day, Armstrong changed his mind. He wanted to talk. What came out of his mouth was a confession spanning 3 continents. He admitted to the Detroit murders, all 5. "Yes, I killed them. I strangled them." Then he started talking about the others. There were others in Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, Israel. The detectives asked how many. Armstrong paused, thought about it. "I don't know exactly. Maybe 16, maybe more, maybe 33. He genuinely didn't remember, or didn't care enough to keep count. Detectives asked him to describe his methodology, and Armstrong did, with chilling detachment. "I would pick them up, sex workers. We'd negotiate a price. Then I'd drive somewhere private. Sometimes I'd go through with it first. Sometimes I wouldn't. Depended on my mood. Then I'd attack. Hands around the throat usually. Sometimes a cord if I'd brought one. They'd fight, claw, kick, scream. I'd maintain pressure until they stopped moving. Then I'd dispose of the body and leave." The detectives asked why. Armstrong shrugged. "I don't know. I just wanted to." No trauma, no abuse, no explanation. He just wanted to kill. Police obtained a warrant to search Armstrong's home. What they found confirmed his confession. Hidden in a closet, trophies, jewelry from victims, clothing items, personal effects, things he'd kept to remember them by. Trophy taking is common among serial killers, a way of reliving the crimes, maintaining a psychological connection to the power and control they felt during the murders. Armstrong's wife was questioned. She was devastated, in complete disbelief. "He seemed normal. We had a normal life. I had no idea." She'd been sleeping next to a serial killer for years, eating dinner with him, watching TV together, planning their future, while he was hiding trophies from murdered women in their home. The compartmentalization was complete. Husband at home, monster on the streets, and she never suspected a thing.
Armstrong was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Wendy Jordan, Robin Brown, Catherine Woods, Laura Lannon, Nakia Jackson. The Detroit victims, the women whose bodies had been found. But everyone knew there were more. So many more. The trial began in 2001. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence, survivor testimonies, DNA evidence, the trophies found in his home, his own confession, international connections. Armstrong's defense team argued diminished capacity, mental illness. The jury didn't buy it. On June 25, 2001, John Eric Armstrong was convicted on all counts.
During the sentencing phase, family members of the victims gave impact statements. These weren't just faceless victims. Wendy Jordan's mother spoke first. "My daughter was a person. She had dreams. She wanted to go back to school, get her life together. She made mistakes, but she didn't deserve to die like that. Strangled, thrown away like garbage." Robin Brown's sister stood up. "You took my sister from me, from her children. She had 2 kids who will grow up without their mother. Because you decided her life didn't matter." Catherine Woods' father. "She was my little girl. I know what she was doing. I know the choices she made. But she was still my daughter, and I loved her. You had no right to take her from me." One by one, the family spoke, giving voices to the women Armstrong had reduced to statistics. On December 21st, 2001, Armstrong was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Michigan had abolished the death penalty, so life imprisonment was the harshest sentence available. He was also convicted in Israel for the Haifa murder, received an additional life sentence there, though he would serve his time in the United States. Armstrong showed no emotion during sentencing. No remorse, no apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd done, just blank indifference. He was taken away to begin serving his sentence. He's currently incarcerated in Michigan. Now in his early 50s, he'll die in prison. But the question that haunts investigators isn't just about Armstrong. It's about all the others. After Armstrong's arrest, military investigators started asking uncomfortable questions. How did a serial killer operate for 7 years on a U.S. Navy ship without anyone noticing? And, more importantly, could there be others? The U.S. Navy has over 330,000 active duty personnel. They visit ports in more than 70 countries every year. Thousands of sailors on shore leave every single day. Most are good people, honorable, serving their country with pride. But some aren't. After Armstrong's conviction, international police agencies started comparing notes, looking at unsolved murders of sex workers in port cities during U.S. Navy visits. What they found was disturbing. Hong Kong, 12 unsolved sex worker murders during U.S. Navy visits between 1992 to 1999. Thailand, 8 unsolved strangulations matching Armstrong's method. Philippines, 6 unsolved murders in Subic Bay area. Singapore, 4 unsolved cases during the same period. Not all of these were Armstrong. He couldn't have killed all of them, which means there were others. Other sailors, other killers, using the same hunting ground, the same cover. The transient nature of military service, the jurisdictional complications.
The perfect environment for serial murder. Military criminal investigators reviewed Armstrong's case looking for warning signs they'd missed. They found almost nothing. No disciplinary issues, no complaints, no red flags. He'd been a model sailor. Which raises a terrifying question. If there were no warning signs with Armstrong, how would they identify others? Right now, U.S. Navy ships are docked in ports around the world. Norfolk, Virginia, San Diego, California, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, Yokosuka, Japan, Bahrain, Naples, Italy. Thousands of sailors on shore leave tonight. Most will visit tourist sites, enjoy local food, have a few drinks, return to their ships. But some won't. Some will be prowling red light districts, looking for vulnerable women, women who won't be missed, who won't be investigated thoroughly. How many Burgundy Grand Prix equivalents are out there right now? Different cars, different cities, same predatory behavior. In 2003, researchers at the Naval Criminal Investigative Service conducted a study. They looked at correlations between U.S. military port visits and unsolved murders. The findings were classified, never released publicly. But according to sources familiar with the report, there were statistical anomalies. Higher than expected rates of unsolved sex worker murders in cities with regular U.S. military presence. Not proof of a widespread problem, but enough to raise concerns. The study made recommendations: better tracking of sailors on shore leave, increased coordination with local law enforcement, cultural sensitivity training. Most recommendations were never implemented. Too expensive, too complicated, too politically sensitive. So the system that enabled Armstrong to kill for 7 years still exists. Right now. Today. Think about the scale of this. The U.S. military has bases in over 150 countries. Hundreds of thousands of personnel rotating through foreign ports every year. The vast majority are good people, but in a group that large, statistically, there will be predators. Psychopaths, sociopaths, serial killers. And the military structure gives them unique advantages. Mobility, access to foreign countries, transient lifestyle that makes pattern recognition difficult, authority and respect that comes with the uniform. Armstrong wore his Navy uniform with apparent pride, stood alongside fellow sailors defending American interests abroad, while simultaneously hunting and killing vulnerable women. The uniform was camouflage. The military service was cover. And no one suspected. How many others are doing the same thing right now? Your neighbor who served in the Navy, the veteran at your workplace, the serviceman you thanked for his service. Most are heroes, genuinely good people who sacrificed for their country. But some aren't, and you'd never know the difference. Because they look normal, act normal. They maintain what psychologists call a mask of sanity, a facade so convincing that even those closest to them never see what's underneath. Armstrong's wife didn't know. His shipmates didn't know. His commanding officers didn't know. He was invisible in plain sight. And that's the truly terrifying part. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wears a uniform, carries a service record, gets an honorable discharge. Sometimes it lives next door. And you'd never know until bodies start turning up. In the years since Armstrong's conviction, there have been other cases. 2008, a Marine corporal convicted of murdering a sex worker in Okinawa, Japan. 2011, a Navy sailor arrested for murdering a woman in Bahrain. 2015, an Army specialist convicted of serial murders in South Korea. These are just the ones who got caught. How many didn't? How many bodies are scattered across port cities worldwide, filed away as local crimes, never connected to American military personnel? The infrastructure that enabled Armstrong still exists. The mobility, the jurisdictional complications, the vulnerability of the victims, all still in place.
Which means it's still happening. Right now. Tonight. Somewhere, a sailor is on shore leave in a foreign port, walking through a red light district, looking for a vulnerable woman. A woman who needs money desperately enough to get in a car with a stranger.
And in that car, something will shift. His eyes will go cold, like looking into the eyes of a shark. She'll have seconds to react, fight, jump, run, like the survivors in Detroit did. Or she'll become another statistic, another body found after the ship leaves port, another case filed away as an isolated local crime, while the killer sails away, thousands of miles away before anyone makes the connection. John Eric Armstrong is in his early 50s now, serving life without parole in a Michigan prison. He'll never leave, never kill again, never see the ocean he once sailed. But the question that haunts investigators isn't just how he got away with it for so long. It's how many others are out there, right now, wearing uniforms, serving their countries, looking completely ordinary, while concealing the same darkness. Armstrong wasn't the stereotypical troubled youth. No animal torture, no fires, no warning signs criminologists talk about. He was just normal. That's what made him so dangerous. The ability to maintain what psychologists call a mask of sanity. Navy serviceman by day, serial killer by night, husband at home, monster on shore leave, and no one knew. How many others wear that same mask? Most military personnel are good people, heroes, genuinely serving with honor. But in a group of 330,000 sailors, statistically, there will be predators. And the military structure gives them unique opportunities to hunt, to kill, to disappear before anyone connects the dots. The burgundy Grand Prix isn't prowling Detroit streets anymore. Armstrong's car was impounded, destroyed years ago. But somewhere, right now, another car is prowling. A different port city, a different red light district. A woman getting into a vehicle with a man who seems normal, polite, quiet, maybe wearing a military uniform. She has no idea she has maybe 30 seconds to live. Unless she notices when his eyes go cold. Unless she fights, jumps, runs, like the lucky ones did. The women Armstrong killed are gone. Wendy Jordan, Robin Brown, Catherine Woods, Laura Lannon, Nikia Jackson, and the unnamed victims across the world, in Hong Kong, Thailand, Israel. Their families never got adequate answers. Just the knowledge that a man in a uniform had stolen their loved ones and sailed away. The USS Nimitz still sails today. Different crew, different missions. Still one of the most powerful ships in the world. But it carries a dark legacy. For 7 years, it unknowingly transported a serial killer, giving him access to hunting grounds across 3 continents, enabling him to kill with impunity. The military has implemented some changes since Armstrong's conviction. Better coordination with local law enforcement, improved tracking systems, but the fundamental structure remains the same. Hundreds of thousands of personnel, rotating through foreign ports, on shore leave in cities they'll never visit again. The opportunities for predators still exist, and some will take those opportunities, just like Armstrong did. If you or someone you know works in vulnerable industries, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone's eyes go cold, if the atmosphere shifts, if you feel danger, fight, jump, run. Don't worry about being rude. Don't worry about the money. Your life is worth more. Resources are available. National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-373-7888. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. Help exists. And if you ever find yourself in a car with someone whose eyes have gone cold, someone whose grip tightens on the steering wheel, someone who looks at you like a predator looking at prey, do what the survivors did. Jump.
John Eric Armstrong is currently serving life without parole at the Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility in Michigan. He is 51 years old. His wife divorced him shortly after his conviction and has since remarried under a different name. The USS Nimitz continues to serve in the U.S. Navy, currently based in Bremerton, Washington. The families of his victims continue to seek closure, though many questions remain unanswered about the full extent of his crimes. The Burgundy Grand Prix was destroyed, but its legacy lives on in the warnings sex workers still share with each other. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, run. Because somewhere, right now, another predator is hunting. And the only difference between life and death is recognizing the danger in time.